Today's movie is a special request from Patreon supporter Joel Baez, who asked me to review the movie The Return of Swamp Thing. Now, to catch you up with what happened in the first Swamp Thing movie, a post-credit scene revealed that Darkseid was close to acquiring the anti-life equation, causing Green Lantern to ask Swamp Thing to join the Justice League. Nah, I'm just fucking with you, that didn't happen. We just saw Swamp Thing's origin story. While the first Swamp Thing wasn't exactly a huge hit, it was apparently successful enough to get a sequel 7 years later with 1989's The Return of Swamp Thing. Hey, if the 2005 Fantastic Four movie can get a sequel, I don't see why Swamp Thing can't have one. Wes Craven didn't return to direct this time around, with directing duties instead being handled by Jim Wynorski, who, if you remember, also made Sorority House Massacre 2, as well as several softcore parody movies like The Bear Wench Project, The Witches of Brestwick, and Cleavage Field. Long story short, dude loves tits. Now, this movie's rated PG-13, which means it's a lot tamer than Wynorski's usual work. Although, considering the first movie was rated PG, we might still get some nudity here. Also, while the first movie took itself relatively seriously, this one opts for a much more comedic approach with an intentionally campy tone. Yeah, because that works so well for other comic book movie sequels like... yeah, sure, we'll go with that one. So we open on an elite mercenary unit patrolling a swamp, or my uncle's bowling team playing army, I'm not sure which. I don't know about Swamp Thing, but with all this fog, I'm pretty sure Trumpy from Pod People is in here somewhere. Just who are these guys looking for, anyway?
Why couldn't we get those moonshiners during the day, huh?
Moonshiners? Those bastards. How dare they try to make their own wine in the toilet? However, things go awry when they get attacked by a monster, and I'm not sure, but I think I had the Star Wars action figure of this guy when I was a kid. Uh-oh, he doesn't like you. Come to think of it, I don't like you either. Good thing Swamp Thing's there to save him. Urgh, Swamp Thing's still going with Hulk impression from last episode. Urgh. One thing you'll quickly notice is that the Swamp Thing costume here is a lot better than the last movie. Swamp Thing actually looks the same as he does in the comics this time. Alright, well, good to know they used the time in between movies to finish the costume. And give them credit, they didn't wait until the last 10 minutes to give us a mutant fight this time. Not that this guy seems to notice.
You saved my life. My name's Dugan. Harry Dugan.
They call me Swamp Thing.
Oh my god, that blurry green monster that saved me is really an in-focus green monster! The movie also has a pretty inventive opening credit sequence with various Swamp Thing comic book panels set to CCR's Born on the Bayou, but if I let the music play, this video would get flagged, so just take my word for it. Well, I am very disappointed. I was told that this was a bad sequel, and so far it's actually been better than the first one. Dick Durock returns from the first movie to play Swamp Thing, but instead of Adrienne Barbeau, our female lead is instead played by Heather Locklear.
There is a God.
Heather be thy name.
Now, this may be hard to believe, but Heather plays a bit of an airhead in this movie.
Why can't men be more like plants? I mean, you can stroke a plant and it doesn't get the wrong idea.
Yeah, I wouldn't be so sure of that. So in case you couldn't tell, Heather's character really likes plants.
Now I'm leaving you in full charge of my friends here. And leave the TV on at all times. They love that guy on TJ What's-His-Name, okay?
Haha, it's funny because Heather was on Melrose Place. Heather plays Abby Arcane, the stepdaughter of Dr. Anton Arcane, who aside from Swamp Thing is the only other returning character and actor from the first movie. Wait a second, didn't Arcane get transformed into a monster and then die at the end of the first movie? Yes. Yes, he did. Alright, there is a throwaway line about some of Arcane's men finding him and nursing him back to health, but honestly, given the cheesy tone of this movie, they could have just had him back with no explanation and it would have kinda fit. Judging from his lab, Arcane seems to have spent his time since the first movie creating rejected Ninja Turtles characters. Alright, as ridiculous as these monsters are, the effects are still better here than in the first one. They actually look like they're from an 80s movie and not a 60s TV show this time. And I see Arcane's henchmen have improved a bit. One of them's even played by Sarah Douglas. You know what? I think that deserves a second schwing. Oh, and I guess Arcane made Boss Hogg a sheriff here?
This fella come running out of the swamp, headed straight for the Squat and Gobble restaurant. Says he himself was saved from the jaws of death by this great big old green man from Mars.
Wait, Green Man from Mars? Wrong DC Comics superhero, dumbass! Arcane assumes the sheriff was actually talking about Swamp Thing. Better send out dime store Che Guevara here to go find him. Besides, Arcane's got family coming over to visit.
Well, this is going to be good.
Look, compared to most of Heather Locklear's filmography, this isn't the worst. The reason Arcane's invited Abby here is so he can try and use her DNA in order to reverse the aging process. In the meantime, though, he has a portrait that gets rape-facey in his place. And I guess this just turned into Swamp Goonies? You know the rules, chunk. No entry until you do the truffle shuffle. Instead of pirate treasure, though, these kids have got something even more valuable.
There you have it. 1988. The year in pictures.
Oh, for the days when you had to hide your porn in the swamp. Nowadays with the internet, you can probably find porn of characters from this movie. Unfortunately, there's a knock on the door, which means they have to do the 80s equivalent to clearing their browser history. This better be important. Uh-oh, the Elephant Man is pissed. Or maybe he just wants to take a look at some of their porn. Looks like it's time for Swamp Thing to reenact the fight we saw at the beginning. Hey, can't use a lightsaber in your movie? Just add some lightning effects for no apparent reason. And great job, Swamp Thing. You just destroyed what little possessions these people had. Well, hopefully the kids' nudie magazines are still alright. Arcane now knows for sure that Swamp Thing's back, although the real mystery is just how in the hell he's back. I also don't think his men are actually trying to find him here. Going ATVing and dropping dynamite is just how people have fun in the South. Oh well, time for a little family quality time.
Tell me about yourself. What have you been doing these last 10 years?
Well, I dated Richie Sambora for a while.
I think Heather Locklear and Sarah Douglas are having a contest to see who can look the most 80s here. Congratulations, Arcane, you got a sample of Abby's DNA. Soon you'll be able to engineer the ultimate Valley Girl. Oh, and Abby, I don't know if it's a great idea to go for a walk at night in this place.
What are we gonna do for fun tonight? Feel like stealing a car? Nah. How about we burn down a house? Nah. Well, why don't we drive over to Uncle Shed's and run over some dogs?
Just a normal Saturday night on the bayou. By the way, this is actually just a random crack whore. These two are just so drunk they only think she looks like Heather Locklear. And just like in the first movie, whenever the female lead is in trouble, Swamp Thing magically appears to come save her.
This guy's coleslaw.
Swamp Thing hate bad one-liners. Hey Heather, Adrienne Barbeau didn't sign on for this movie, so I guess you're my love interest now. Despite the change in female leads, Swamp Thing still hasn't learned that the minute he leaves her alone, she's just gonna get captured again. Swamp Thing, run away. Swamp Thing's one weakness, reenacting Sonny Corleone's death from The Godfather. Okay, it'll take a lot more than that to kill Swamp Thing. Just like it apparently takes a lot to kill Dr. Arcane.
Your stepfather was almost dead when Dr. Zarell and I found him in the bog. Over a period of months, we were able to restore him to his present form.
See, that explains how he's back. Shut up. Now that Arcane's plan is finally coming together, time for him to celebrate by doing it through the flap in his pajamas. And turns out Swamp Thing isn't dead, he just turned into the oil monster from Creepshow 2. I had no idea one of his superpowers was the ability to turn himself into Bubble Bath. And damn it, Swamp Thing, put a towel on, will ya? Have you no shame? Not that Swamp Thing needs to rescue Abby. I think she can handle herself.
It's time to play doctor.
Bet you can't guess my favorite operation.
What's that, baby?
A vasectomy.
Wait, so does this mean I don't have to wear a condom now? Ugh. Guards no take Abby. Swamp Thing want Heather Locklear for himself. Oh, and if you don't like my Swamp Thing impression, just wait until you hear the real dialogue from this movie.
Alec, how did you get here?
You might say I was piped in.
Great, now Swamp Thing's gonna have to kick his own ass for making a shitty pun. Unfortunately, Swamp Thing can't force Abby through the bathtub drain to escape, which means he'll have to use another one of his superpowers, carjacking. So long, suckers.
Oh, gross!
Okay, I think taking a dump on Arcane's doorstep before you left is going a little far there, Swamp Thing. Great, not only did Swamp Thing give Arcane some of his DNA, but I think he wants to do the same thing to Abby. Oh hey, just standing here watching you sleep. Hopefully that's not creepy. Lucky for him, we established that Abby has a plant fetish earlier.
Is there a Mrs. Swamp Thing?
Nah, my last girlfriend left me for Man-Thing. It's hard to compete with a guy who's giant-sized, after all. And I wasn't kidding about Heather Locklear having a plant fetish in this movie. They strongly imply she fucks Swamp Thing here. Or at least whoever this stand-in for him is. You know, considering all the fog in this movie, I'm surprised Adrienne Barbeau isn't in this. And are you seriously trying to make these kids recurring characters in this movie?
Good grief, I could be home watching cable.
Look, for the last time, it's a DC Comics movie, not a Marvel one. So if you were wondering what these two are doing back in the movie...
Ho-hos. Twinkies? No. Snowballs? No. Ding-dongs? Sorry.
It's to let us know the fat kid eats a lot. And come on, Swamp Thing, don't rescue him. I still don't even know what they're doing in this movie.
So that means you let us go, right?
Wrong. Right.
What?
Alright, I added in that sound effect, but honestly, could you tell? I know I already made a Ninja Turtles reference, but apparently Swamp Thing is just Casey Jones now. And I think I figured out why the kids are in this movie. It's so Swamp Thing can go, "Swamp Thing, love chunk!" As you may expect, being away from Abby for more than 5 seconds results in her getting captured. Now how is Swamp Thing supposed to find a girl who's into plants before the internet? I could try and go after her, but... nah. My god, Arcane captured Abby so he can test out his new massage chair on her! The Fiend! Okay, actually Arcane wants to combine Abby and Swamp Thing's DNA into a serum, which will somehow make him immortal? Or something? Look, the fact that Arcane's even back in the first place doesn't make any sense. I don't see why his plan has to. How is Swamp Thing gonna rescue Abby from Arcane's goons this time? Oh, right, I forgot. They're incompetent. You know, being a superhero is a lot easier when your enemies are complete fucking idiots.
This is too easy.
Yeah, I'll say. Arcane needs to vet his henchmen a little more. Meanwhile, it looks like Arcane's got some leftover effects from Life Force in that chair. The experiment was a success, Doc. You don't look a day over what you did before. Just keep your shirt on this time, okay? Unfortunately, it does lead to an unfortunate case of hand acne. That's because Sarah Douglas actually double-crossed him earlier and sabotaged the operation. I guess she was tired of always being the secondary comic book movie villain.
Lana. Laughter is best, isn't it?
Why does Sarah Douglas always end up getting killed on my show? Okay, time for our climax, but instead of Arcane becoming a monster again, somebody else gets turned into a Star Trek alien. Hey, at least the makeup's decent this time. However, this guy learns very quickly that having a big brain does not make you a good fighter. Don't make me do math equations at you, Swamp Thing!
What's new, Jolly Green Giant?
What the hell? When did this guy suddenly become Bill Paxton from Near Dark?
Oh, shit, man!
Okay, is it me or do all the villains in this movie really suck at fighting? Alright, you rescued Abby. Now the only thing left to do is to reenact the movie's poster. And don't look so disappointed, Arcane. If you survived the first movie, I'm pretty sure you can also survive this. He seems a lot tougher than Abby, who needs Swamp Thing to bring her back. At least he's less handsy this time around.
You brought me back, didn't you?
There may be side effects.
Like what?
You might have a recurring role on a Tyler Perry series. Oh, and she's a plant now. Look at it this way, Swamp Thing. If things don't work out, you could always try hooking up with Poison Ivy. While the first Swamp Thing got a mixed reception from both critics and audiences, the response to Return of Swamp Thing was a lot more negative, with Heather Locklear even getting a Razzie Award for Worst Actress for her role in the film. But is it really that much worse than the first one? Well... objectively, yes, but in terms of entertainment value, I actually like this one a little bit better. Don't get me wrong, the movie's definitely cheesy and stupid, but it's aware of that fact. While the first movie fell into the trap of not quite knowing whether it wanted to be silly or serious, this one just decides to have fun with how ridiculous everything is. It's kind of the tonal opposite of something like Guyver Dark Hero, which was another low-budget sequel that had a much more consistent tone and a clearer idea of what it wanted to be than the original, the difference being that that one was dark and violent, while this one is light and comedic. Not everyone's gonna enjoy the campier direction taken here, but if you can turn your brain off and enjoy it for what it is, it's actually pretty entertaining. It also shows us that you can make a campy, tongue-in-cheek comic book movie without spending over $100 million and having Arnold Schwarzenegger saying cold puns. If only Hollywood had taken notice. Well, that's all for now. Until next time.
Wait here.